I once said to my father, when I was a boy, Dad, we need a third political party. He said to me, I'd settle for a second. Ralph Nader, welcome to the revolution. Hello and welcome to We Need a Revolution. My name is Kevin Rosenquist, and of course, as always, I am joined by the man sitting that way, which I always get wrong because it's reversed, John Banks. John, how you doing, buddy?
I am doing fantastic, Kevin. How are you doing on this fine Wednesday?
I'm good. It's warm here in Colorado. It's like 85, 86 degrees. It's high for March.
Yeah, I think somehow we accidentally opened up the gates of hell, and yeah, it's been because I know we did that in California last week. It was crazy hot for March.
I heard.
We were breaking 90 all week. So,
jeez, yeah. Well, at least climate change is a myth. Thank you all for joining us. We very much appreciate you being here. Just a couple of reminders. Please subscribe to the channel. We very much appreciate that. And we do these live, so please join the chat. John monitors the comments, so please ask questions if you have them. Comment if you want. Be respectful, please. Especially about John's graying beard. He's very sensitive about that.
Right. And my ever expanding forehead. So
and your ever expanding. Yes. Well, you didn't need to pile on yourself.
Well, I'm self-deprecating because I want to say it before anyone else can.
So I'm excited about our guest tonight, yes. John Goodwin with the Forward Party. We've talked some about third parties and voter reform and things like that on the show. Obviously you and I both talked, we knew about the Forward Party. This isn't a new one for us. We know that Andrew Yang started it and all that stuff, but an exciting time to really start considering other options from the two major parties.
Absolutely. And I feel we were talking before this that, I feel like with a lot of the guests we've had on recently, it just seems to be, there's just so many people want to change and how our democracy works. So really looking forward to diving into a whole other party and what that means. So.
And that's what we want. That's one of our whole points of this show, is that we want to look at things in a different way. We want to say, hey, it doesn't have to be a two-party duopoly that are beholden to billionaires or any of that. And, what better way to talk about that than with a third party that's on ballots, it's
yes.
just really cool. Yeah.
And getting on more every day. So
yeah. Definitely. All right. Well, enough about us, or enough of us. Let's bring out our guests. What do you say?
Yes, please.
All right. Well, as I mentioned, John Goodwin is the communications director for the Forward Party. He has spent over 2 decades navigating the inner workings of Capitol Hill and corporate leadership, and now he's working to dismantle the very machine he once operated within. We're going to talk about the reality of ballot access, the myth of the wasted vote, and whether a bottom-up approach can actually break the grip of the two-party system. So, John Goodwin, welcome.
Hey guys, thanks. Happy to be here. John, you have nothing to worry about with your beard. It looks great. It's majestic. I love it.
Well, thank you.
Majestic.
So yeah. Well, that's enough for me. I'm out. Thank you. That's really
all you wanted.
I just needed validation. Yeah.
So, John, we talked a little bit before we hit record, and really excited to chat with you because as you know about this show, we're very much about voter reform, election reform, just reform overall of just fixing the problems of this government. For anybody who's new to the ideals of the Forward Party, could you kind of just tell us what the mission is?
Absolutely. And, I would sum it up in, it's kind of a 2-part mission. One is around democracy reform, making sure every vote counts, getting rid of closed primaries, getting rid of partisan gerrymandering, really helping bring the voters' voice back into politics and reforming that, working with some of our partners in that space to make sure every vote counts and that the two-party system can no longer dominate how our leaders are elected and chosen. On top of that, we are building a new third party to give a home for candidates who are independent-minded, don't feel like they fit, perfectly in either of the legacy parties philosophically and policy-wise, but also for voters to find those candidates who they can be proud of. I think, to put a fine point on it, how many great civic-minded leaders are not running for office today because they don't think they can get through a partisan primary, or they
Yeah.
know they can't get through a partisan primary. So
Yeah.
Forward is helping build that infrastructure that mostly does not exist for those independent-minded candidates in states across the country, and hopefully nationally as we get further. If you want to run for an office and you don't fit into one of the two parties, the barriers to entry are massive, whether that is how to get on a ballot via signatures or not being able to raise money. Forward Party is building that infrastructure to be durable and long lasting, not just flash in the pan for 1 or 2 or 3 election cycles, but to actually build a third party. And to your point earlier, Kevin, in some states, we will be the second party because it's so one party dominated, and the current second party is so weak there. The infrastructure we're building, the candidates we're recruiting, the volunteers we're empowering, we could be and will be the second party in many of the states.
Well, that's
Wow.
awesome.
That's
So-
incredible.
So John, could you
Yeah.
could you just kind of tell us, like, as you guys are growing, like how hard is it to become a third party in this country, and what are some of the challenges that you guys have faced? I'm sure it's an uphill battle, right? So how are you guys managing that? And yeah, what is your strategy?
Sure. There's too many of these challenges to tell, right? I'll start off by saying the only thing that those two legacy parties hate more than each other is a viable third party.
Yeah.
They work together, but separately, to make it so hard for a third party to emerge. They just want to fight each other. They just want to run against each other. They like having that perfect foil to raise money and to win elections. Someone that comes in that's independent minded, that they can't really put, a label on, that takes good ideas from both sides, is the worst nightmare for both of them. So
Right.
that being said, these barriers to entry that they have set up include, getting a ridiculous amount of signatures if you're an independent candidate to compared to what a Republican or Democratic candidate needs to get on the ballot. So ballot access is incredibly hard, and it's a checkerboard. It's different in every state. Some states you have to do it by county, some you can do it statewide. It is so confusing and hard and expensive to get signatures for ballot access. The rules are different. The rules can be ridiculous. So ballot access is one of the biggest challenges. Some of it, and some of the challenges are so small that you may not even think of them. For example, if we wanted to hire a digital advertising agency to help us place ads, most of them are locked up. The folks who know how to do political advertising, know how to place political ads, will say, sorry, we only do Republicans, or we only do Democrats. There hasn't been sort of a media agency, or even, and this is crazy, attorneys who work for the independent parties, because they've all been locked up, and they know if they work with us, they may lose their clients from one of those two parties. So that's a real sort of micro issue, but it's just a part of the structure that has been built against third parties. I think ballot access is the hardest part, honestly, because it's so hard to get, and it's also one of the most important. But going all the way down to the micro level, it's been set up against us, and even things the parties haven't done. The media, right? The media now has taken sides, whether you're Fox News or MS Now. There aren't really networks for just independents.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, there are independent networks and unbiased networks, but there's nothing that just represents independence. Or when's the last time you saw a well-known independent pundit on your TV representing the independent voter or the independent candidate? It's just not there. It's clickbait, and it's like the tension between the two parties that drives, the media and other things. So the challenges are numerous. They are daunting, but they're not insurmountable. And that's why we are committed to doing the hard work and the long, the long job, the hard work, the long job of getting the infrastructure to help an actual third party, field candidates, grow voters, raise money. Raising money is a challenge, as you can imagine, right? Donors are generally likely to commit to one side or the other, but we're doing it and we're doing a great job. So there are challenges. I would also add, in the past, most third parties, if not all, were usually set up to help one man win an election. And it's mostly been men. In fact, I'm sure it's probably always been men. If you think about, Perot and Nader and others, that's why the third parties were set up. They were sort of driven by the ego of one person who either didn't want to run for one of the two parties or didn't think they could. That's not us. We're not here to run one presidential candidate. We are starting at the ground level, building up through infrastructure, a bench of great local civic-minded candidates, all the things that are going to build the system, the programs, the infrastructure needed for that long-term solution.
What, if anything, do you have, does the Forward Party have sort of those pillars, those staples, if you will, kind of like, certain things are associated with right-wing candidates, certain things are associated with left-wing candidates. If you went to even the Libertarian website, you're going to see certain things. Do you guys have sort of an agenda, or do you feel like you're more just sort of like, let's just do this. Let's just do this for the betterment of everybody?
Thanks for bringing it up, Kevin. I did want to touch upon this. The traditional definition that we all think of for political parties is generally they have a policy platform, right? Low taxes, better welfare benefits, right? Which party is where on every individual issue, and they have staked those out, and then they drive down those litmus tests, right? You have to, if you're a candidate, you have to agree to everything. You can't have any freedom. You can't make up your own mind. You can't even vote, what's better for your local community if it's not what the party leadership wants.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it becomes a thing where you have to, you're choosing a side because maybe there's one issue that they have to be a part of. And so you always want to make sure that you're voting for that issue that matters to you.
Exactly right. So we've sort of eschewed that traditional definition of political parties where we have a strict, rigid policy platform and you have to be, 100% aligned to be part of our party. We have built a values-based party. So we let candidates choose their own sort of policy based on where they live, what their constituents need, who they are, but through the filter of our values. And we make all of our candidates sign a pledge to live by our values. And these are things like the rule of law. Crazy, right? You're a candidate, you agree to support the rule of law, but you also agree to treat people with dignity and respect.
All right, you've lost like 95% of the potential candidates already.
Exactly. So we've got a list of, I think it's 5 key values and 3 bullets underneath it. Like I said, so things like treating people with dignity and as humans, believing that data should be used to drive policies. Imagine that, not just how you feel about something, but like what works, what doesn't, how do we A/B test? What have we seen that really did help and what didn't? I mean, radical, right? It shouldn't be, but these are things that just aren't happening now. So on our website, we have our list of values. We make our candidates sign them and live by them. So say you want to approach immigration and you're a candidate and you're trying to figure out, where am I? Well, you should listen to your community. Are you a border town? Because that's going to definitely probably affect how you build your policy versus, being landlocked in the middle of the country. Are you heavily in ag? Are you heavy, so not just the special interests and the folks in DC telling you what your position is. Talk to your community. What do they want? What do they feel? But also, what are your values? You believe in human decency. These are humans. If you're looking at immigration, right? Treat immigrants as the humans that they are, not just a pawn in a game,
right?
But also you believe in rule of law. So you could say, and this is just all theoretical, right? But you could be a candidate that says, yeah, I do believe that our borders should be stronger, but also let's treat the people who are here like the humans they are and with the dignity they are. But you know what? I also, one of the forward values is around is around, American greatness based on innovation. There's a lot of great innovation that comes. So as a candidate, I went through these values. I looked at the issue, listened to my communities. So, I don't fall neatly in either side. Here's what I think is a policy that might actually work. So we want independent thinkers who agree that good ideas can come from anywhere, listen to your community, live by the values and your values and the values of the forward party, and come up with real policy solutions to fix the problem.
That's awesome. All right.
Hard to argue. I mean, it's hard to argue.
It's novel. Yeah.
I do have a quick thing I wanted to say. I was doing a little digging earlier about the last election, and so the largest third party in the U.S. is the Libertarian Party by members or registered. With roughly 700,000 Americans registered. In the 2024 election, Libertarian candidate Chase Oliver got 757,000 votes, or 0.49%. Jill Stein of the Green Party was actually the top third party candidate with 868,000 votes, or 0.56%, which obviously those aren't the best numbers we've ever seen. But, we're going to talk about some of the systemic reasons for this, obviously. But do you think voters are just wary of any candidate not part of the big two? Is it because I understand money play? Excuse me. I understand money plays in. Obviously, money plays in. But people, if people get fired up, if they hear people talk and all that stuff, they could potentially be swung that way, but they're not. Why do you think that is?
I think a big part of it is that the American voter has been conditioned by the two legacy parties to believe they can only vote for one of those two legacy parties.
Right.
I really think, and it's not all nefarious. For a long time, that was the only way, or, sometimes there really are only these two candidates who emerge. And that's really just this, bifurcated choice. There's only two, right? But I really just think voters have not been conditioned to look for and to embrace independent and third party candidates yet. And that's, something we're working on. We feel internally that the market is ready for it. The demand is so high. People want it. They're looking for alternatives. And we're just building that infrastructure and that movement to give them what they're looking for.
So let me kind of go back. So I would imagine, right, that being we have a two-party system, that means that basically the House, the Senate, the administration, and the judicial system are all kind of either red or blue or Democrat or Republican, right? And so with all of that in place, is that also, or I would imagine, right, that is part of the uphill battle? Because are you guys also doing this? Are you like advocating to try to get laws changed to make it easier for third parties to get into on the ballot?
Absolutely. We have a number of partner organizations around the country and in the states that we work with. We, take part in lawsuits. We help push amendments or changes to the law. We were involved recently in Florida on trying to open the primaries. We think that closed primaries are one of the biggest drivers of some of the problems we see right now. We just took a stance on the gerrymandering vote in Virginia. We had taken a stance on California. We have a call from our Virginia team this week or next, trying to rally volunteers around opposing that partisan gerrymandering. So yeah, let's change the rules to help candidates and independent candidates and third parties gain ballot access, and give these really qualified candidates the opportunity to appear on ballots. And at the same time, let's change the rules to give the voters their voice back. In a lot of places, if we want to look at congressional, the districts are drawn so much through gerrymandering that whoever wins that primary is going to win the general. Right. It's a foregone conclusion. So what else do they do? Well, then they say, oh, we're going to have a closed primary. Only registered people from our party can vote. So 17% of the people, just throwing it out there, are going to choose who that member of Congress is, because they're chosen by the small amount of people in a closed primary in a gerrymandered district that guarantees the outcome. This is politicians choosing their voters instead of the voters choosing their politicians. So we work, nationally in every state to try to change these, like you said, through lawsuits, through amendments, through referendums, any way we can to help bring democracy back to the system, give people more choices of the ballot, and hopefully break this sort of deadlock that leads to things, like 4-hour lines at the airport because they can't pass a funding bill.
Right.
I think Atlanta was 9 hours, right? I was reading that. Yeah, Atlanta.
I'm flying a week from today, and I'm very nervous.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a couple trips that I'm very, very nervous about.
You guys might want to drive. So yeah, because
that's a long drive from Colorado to Georgia there, John.
Yeah, it is a long drive, but you may actually get there quicker.
Yeah.
So
don't tell me that.
Yeah,
that's horrible. Yeah, so that's John, kind of what I was talking about earlier, right? It's like this dual mission. One is to provide the infrastructure to actually elect candidates and to raise money and volunteers and ballot access, and then also working with our partners in the democracy reform space to change the rules to benefit those independent candidates and the voters who want to vote for them.
And could you just just for our listeners, kind of explain so when you say closed primary, right? Can you kind of break down what that actually means?
Sure. There's probably 6 or 8 different kinds of primary elections, and they vary by state. And in fact, they don't only vary by state, they vary by local. So for example, the New York mayoral primary was different than what a New York statewide primary would be. A closed primary is when only registered members of the party can vote in that primary to choose who the nominee for that party will be in the general. So if you're in a congressional district and you want only the Republicans can vote in the Republican primary, only the Democrats can vote in the Democrat primary. The open primary is generally where anyone can vote regardless of affiliation or who you're registered with. There's others called the jungle primary, which you've heard, where it's just everyone gets in and everyone votes, and the top 2 or top 4, if no one gets 50%, get through. California right now has this really interesting top 2 primary for governor. So there's all these different kinds of primary situations and programs, but closed primaries are really the most problematic because they really just narrow down so finely, and it generally forces to the extremes, right? Because the people who are going to vote in a closed primary are generally going to be the most active, likely the most strident, hardened people in that party, whether they're on the right or on the left. So you're going to get candidates who are further to the left and further to the right and more extreme, because it's just that small group of really impassioned voters voting in that closed primary for the party.
Okay.
Is the reason for the closed primary, or the thinking behind it, is it like they're worried if it's open, then people might sabotage a candidate on the other side or something? Like, what is the reason for it?
Exactly. There's some of that. There's some that believe that, if they have a particularly strong candidate or a particularly weak candidate, that whether it's independents or Democrats or Republicans, right, the other side will come in and flood to prop up the weaker candidate, so that's who they face in the general.
Okay.
So that's one. But also I've heard folks say, well, it's our party, it's our candidate. Only members of our party should choose who our candidate is. So that's not as conspiratorial of a theory, but it's kind of like, well, we're choosing our candidate. Why would we let people who aren't registered for our party choose who our candidate will be?
Right.
So this would, I guess, let's kind of move into ranked choice voting and star voting and these different types of voting that would, I guess, help with this. Are you guys also advocating for that? Are you trying to basically, would that, when you say get rid of open or closed primaries, would ranked choice voting be something that would get rid of that?
It would be, yep. And that's one thing we would support and have supported in the past. What we don't want is to dictate to the states what they do, right? But we want them to reform, to bring in more voters, bring in more choice of the ballot. So things like ranked choice voting getting rid of straight ticket voting, right, where you just pull for all one side, like
Right.
that you know. So the open primaries, the top 2 primaries, these are all better than closed primaries, right? So we do advocate for these better systems of voting that increase choices. The system is set up right now to severely limit who we get to vote for. And we think that is leading to more extremism, leading to less compromise. And we think people should get to, go to a ballot and be like, this person more closely resembles me and my thinking and what I want, rather than these just 2 people that don't resonate with me at all. So
Yeah.
So again, leave it up to the states, but yes, we encourage things like ranked choice voting to help increase that choice at the ballot box. Because, some of these systems, when they're closed and the gerrymandering, they also remove the accountability from the candidates, because they only have to speak to and be responsive to such a small number, right?
Right.
So if you have something like ranked choice voting, where you have to appeal to independents who are voting, you have to tone down your rhetoric. You have to, maybe listen to the community more, have some better, more diverse policy solutions, because the more you open up the voting, the more people you are accountable to and need to be responsive to. So as you limit that, it really just makes some of these candidates accountable to outside interests and the party bosses in DC.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, we've talked about voter reform and some of these options on other episodes, and one of the things that's come up before is the idea that this changing up these systems actually can help youth, the younger voter turnout, because they feel like they're more represented. Is now, like the parties, the 2 parties, though, obviously don't want this reform because they have the stranglehold on the process. Do you feel like, are they afraid of young voters? Do they feel like if they let young voters get more votes in, that they would be, they might feel that might lose their spot?
I would argue that there is some of that. I would argue in, both sides for different reasons. Actually, I think, on the Republican side, they're afraid of youth voters because they don't necessarily line up with a lot of their philosophies.
Sure.
And on the Democrat side, I think there's a little fear of youth voters, because that party to me seems to be so sort of like these people, it's their turn, right? So-and-so has been in office for 30 years. It's their turn to go to the next level, right? So
right.
Yeah.
So a lot of people said that with Hillary Clinton.
Exactly right.
It was her turn.
And
Mm-hmm.
Right. They like being able to kind of rig it a little bit. I mean, they have, the super, the folks at the super convention folks who can basically just choose who the party nominee is going to be. So yeah. I do think both sides are a little afraid of the youth, and it also, to me, it expands the voter base. So it's more people you have to talk to, more people you have to spend money to reach, and they like this sort of tight group of people, the voters they know they can identify. And with technology and everything else today, keeping that smaller group of voters who you can reach out and make sure you get to the polls is probably better than having to bring in a lot more into the system and educate them and get them out there.
Okay, that makes sense.
So when did this start, right? When did this, I mean, so I know me personally, I remember Ross Perot, and I remember it seems like, I shouldn't say remember, but it seems like after Ross Perot, a lot of things changed. That is kind of when they were both like, oh crap, Bill Clinton won because of Ross Perot, and Bush lost. So it's like, we should get together in this backroom deal. Like, is that when it started, this kind of entrenchment, or was it going on before that?
I'm not sure I'm old enough to speak to it, despite the gray in my beard and the gray in my hair.
I am old enough to speak to it.
I remember Ross Perot. I do,
but I do remember Ross Perot. I can't speak before that.
Okay,
but I agree that does seem to me that's kind of when it started. I grew up in party politics in the early 2000s, and I saw massive changes there, some of which were enabled by technology and social media. But it really just became so nasty, particularly in Congress, and denying the other side a win became the ultimate mission.
Mhm.
So I think it was probably I think you might be pretty accurate. A little bit after Ross Perot in that time frame coming into the 90s, 2000s, where they were just like, let's just fight each other. Let's make sure neither side wins. Let's just, I think it really became easier for them to limit that choice and just make each other the ultimate enemy. And whether they did it intentionally or it naturally happened because
Right.
it really, like, again, I may not be old enough, but it really felt like casting the other side as the enemy became like the thing to do in politics, probably starting with like the Clinton type folks. I don't remember HW
Yeah.
or Reagan, right?
Yeah, I don't remember that when I was a kid. I don't remember I don't remember the harsh rhetoric toward the other side.
Exactly. I don't either. And I think, to me, when I was in college, was sort of Clinton was, pre-college, but also in, you get into the Monica Lewinsky, and then you've got Newt Gingrich and the Contract with America and folks like Tom DeLay. And then how, they vilified W, and then how Republicans came back at Obama. The nastiness really, I think, started to come about in probably during the Bill Clinton term, as far as I can remember.
Yeah.
And then also remember that on the other side of what you just said, John Banks, is that people say Ralph Nader is the only reason W beat Gore, right? Like that was another thing. So they both had that scapegoat or that spoiler kind of thing. So yeah, maybe that was the point where they're like, all right, now we're doing the backroom deal. We can't have this happen anymore. We both got effed by this. It's not happening anymore.
Yeah.
We're going to win fair and square, which means just one-on-one and screw the voters.
Exactly. We don't care what the voters want. We just want to be in power.
I kind of like John McCain. I remember when John McCain, he was like in a town hall and someone had said something very derogatory about Obama, or I forget what it was. He's a communist or something like that. And John McCain was like, no, he's like, that's not true. And I feel like he was kind of, not him personally, but like he was definitely like a dying breed, right?
Yeah.
Of politician where, and even people who are been career politicians, they have playing into this game now. Where I actually feel like John McCain was somebody who did not do that, and
he didn't. Yeah. I liked John McCain.
Yeah, I
did
too.
Yeah. He was old school and a great man and a good leader.
He was a good man. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
But, I also think Obama was a great man.
I think
he's a great man. And Mitt Romney's a great man. Look what the left did to Mitt Romney.
Yeah,
who was a great man and maybe could have kept us out of some of the stuff we're in now. And Obama was like I said, a great man, right? Some of the vitriol just didn't match who they were, but no one cared. Like it just started to come out, and we've been on a slippery slope down since, right?
Mm-hmm. So the approach here into getting the forward party, or really we'll just say it as any party, any third party. Do you believe a bottom up approach is the way to go, where you really start at the local level and you have to build up to get to higher positions?
I think we believe that it's not the only approach, but you have to do that. And as I said earlier, some of those campaigns where they were right for president, they didn't build that infrastructure at the local level. They just built a presidential campaign around it. So we are building from the ground up, from the bottom up, at the local level with state parties and local parties and volunteers, and trying to elect people to the smallest town position there is, because those often get ignored. There's something like 700,000 elected offices in the US that are unfilled. No one runs for them.
Really?
Right? So looking to fill some of those. There's also just so many uncompetitive seats, right? So whether it's a city council or, county level, people just don't run against the other person. So trying to recruit people in that may not have wanted to run before. At the same time, we do have federal candidates, we have gubernatorial candidates. So we have those higher tier candidates on top of it, but we would never abandon that sort of ground strategy, because that's going to be the durable infrastructure that lasts a long time. Those are the candidates who can matriculate up. They build trust in their local communities. They learn how to govern and lead. So starting really local and then growing with us, growing with the party, growing with your voters, I think is really great way to build civic leadership.
And it should go that way, right? Shouldn't it be that way where you got, it's, you got to cut your teeth somewhere. And, it'd be nice if someone voting for, or running for president maybe had a little bit more of an understanding of how politics work. I know a lot of people liked or like Trump because he is the opposite of the, the career politician or whatever, but that doesn't always necessarily mean it's a good choice.
Exactly right. And I think, for me to put a finer point on it would be not just how politics and government works, but how constituent service works and how working for the people who are electing you, voting for you, elevating you to be their voice for them, learning how that works, I think should be super important. So you don't lose touch with them as you move through the system or you matriculate up. So it's a great way to learn how government works, but also how to, take care of and nurture those relationships of the people that you're going to be representing.
Yeah.
So, okay. So I kind of want to take a step back here and talk about the signatures you need to get on the ballot. So like, can you just talk about because you know more about this than Kevin and I would. If we did this for 5 years, we probably wouldn't know as much as you do. So could you pick a state and kind of break down, what it takes to get on any state or any county, just something that you're very familiar with? Can you kind of tell us, kind of walk us through all that whole process?
Absolutely. I'll walk you through one state that's sort of top of mind, and then I'll tell a quick story about another one. But in Arizona, for example, to get on the ballot, if you are a member of the Republican Party or the Democrat Party, you need something in the area of 5,000 to 6,000 signatures to get on the ballot. Now, those signatures have to be people who are part of your party, so they have to be Republican signatures or Democratic signatures, but you need, a relatively low number for, say, a statewide race is to get 5,000 signatures. If you were to run as an independent in Arizona, the number is something like 45 or 58,000.
Jeez.
10 times the amount. And without the infrastructure to help gather those signatures, right? Because if you're trying to get on the Democratic ticket and you need the 5,000, 8,000, sub 10,000 signatures, you can go from county Democrat meeting to county Democratic meeting, right? And you've got those built-in folks and you've got those built-in volunteers. Until what we're trying to build here at Forward, there generally hasn't been that infrastructure to even gather that many signatures. And you have to, get volunteers to go to supermarkets, to go to town halls, to meet people where they are, to knock on doors, ask for signatures. So that number is massive. And however the parties set it up, right, that they need such a low number and the independent needs such a high number, it's unbelievable, that delta between what the independent needs and the party candidates. I that to me is one of the most egregious ones because of that delta. And I'm sure there's others. I know, for example, I think in Texas, you have to get signatures per legislative district or something so minute. So you couldn't just get the total signatures needed throughout the state. You have to have a certain amount in every little part of the state inside those lines. So that makes it really hard. And Georgia has some ridiculous signature requirement for independence for anyone that makes it almost impossible for someone that's not a Republican or Democrat to get on the ballot. And it varies by state. Now, there's often associated with it sort of a cost per signature, because it generally costs money to get these signatures, whether it's through volunteers or whatever the campaign is to get them.
Yeah, it's a pain. It's not easy to do that. That's a big undertaking.
Yeah, and I've heard in some states that number is $80 per signature. So you multiply that times 48,000, whatever you need, it really starts to add up. That's just to get the signatures to get on the ballot. Now, the funny,
crazy,
say it's funny, the anecdote in your home state there in Colorado is there's an article just today that the Republicans and the Democrats were complaining that they were having a hard time getting enough signatures to get on the ballot because there are too many registered independents now. And so
good
irony to me,
yeah.
Right? Like boo-hoo.
Yeah.
Right. There's so many registered independents or unaffiliated in Colorado now that the two sort of legacy parties, the duopoly, are having a hard time getting enough signatures to get on the ballot.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
So they're like, this unfair system that we created isn't fair to us.
Yeah, wait a minute.
Exactly
right.
Minute. Yeah, not only, have they been pushing people out of their parties towards independence, right? They also had set up the system where it's hard. So that kind of two-prong is just like crushing them. And it's, Cry me a river, boo-hoo. Let's help fix the system for everybody, right?
Yeah, no doubt. Now, that seems kind of like somewhat archaic. I mean, the signature thing, I mean, in this day and age, I mean, is it really seriously a friggin' clipboard that you have people sign? Is it that old school, if you will?
Yes. And then the Secretary of State or some sort of state agency goes through every single name to make sure they didn't sign multiple candidates' petitions, to make sure they are part of the right party. So to make matters even worse, in some of these states, you want to get double the required amount of signatures to turn in because you could, 40%, almost 50% could be invalidated based on, someone thought they were registered with the party, but they didn't know they weren't. So their signature is invalid. Mm-hmm. Exactly. Mm-hmm. So sometimes you would have to get double, but yeah, it's literally door to door. This is also great. In the Colorado article, another challenge is that because of Ring and Nest cameras, people don't open their doors anymore.
Yeah. So I don't want to be bothered. That's why I have a Ring and a no soliciting sign.
Exactly. So the old school door to door with a clipboard asking for signatures, I think the article said something like only 20% of doors actually get open now. So they have to, knock on X amount more doors just to try to get the same amount of signatures they used to get. So
I believe it.
Maybe there's a reform idea. Maybe it's, something comes about that we can fix it. But for now, that's kind of the system we live in.
So when someone comes to my door, if it ain't Amazon, I'm like, what is going on?
But you don't open the door for Amazon.
Well, no, but I'm saying, like, if someone triggers the Ring, I'm like,
I'm
like, and it's not Amazon. I'm like, what? Who are you? Why are you doing that?
Why is there someone ringing my doorbell? This is really strange.
This is so weird.
So, John, let me see if I kind of understand this, right? I just want to do a recap to make sure that I'm getting this because this is crazy. So let's say I live in a blue area, right? Not even a blue state, but I'm in a blue town, right? And then, so that means in that town, most likely that means, my local politicians are going to be Democrats. That means the people who are hired, who are the gatekeepers of these signatures, are going to be Democrats, right? And I'm not saying Democrats or Republicans are better or worse. I'm just using this in this example. I just want to be clear about that. Nobody get mad at me. So
phone lines are ringing up.
So then, and let's say I have to get 100,000 signatures, right, to be an independent candidate, right? So I get my 100, but taking your advice, right, I'm like, okay, I want to get double the signatures. So then I get double the signatures. But basically, these people who are the gatekeepers, if they lean to that party, they may they're looking for any reason not to have a third party. So then basically, they're the ones who are checking these signatures. Is that correct? Is that the way I'm understanding this?
The signatures are generally, they're checked by a government official.
Okay.
So we have faith in our government officials.
Okay.
You're not, we have faith that the people who are actually in charge of validating them are doing their job and we support them, and it's just their job to go through and validate.
It's just a very stringent process, like because they just want to make absolutely sure that it is a U.S. citizen and it is followed by the law, right? That's
exactly
really,
right.
Okay.
And there have been multiple cases every year. There are multiple cases of fake signatures, right? Just somebody you pay someone to go get signatures. They don't feel like doing it. They sit in a Dunkin' Donuts and sign, 100 random looking scribbles, right? Or there was a congressman from Michigan a while back who failed to get on, a sitting congressman who failed to get the signatures because the agency he hired to help do it just cheated and turned in false ones. So he just couldn't be on the ballot anymore. So there's lots of examples of sort of fraud on the collection side, not so much on sort of the validation side.
Okay. So that's good. Yeah. I mean, I will say that is really good to know that our government systems are holding and working the way they should.
Especially for a system that's kind of old. The concept is old. Yeah. I want to talk about the money aspect too. Because obviously that's a big part of it. And one of the main reasons that independent candidates, third parties struggle, we always hear about this candidate spent this much. I think, as I recall, Kamala outspent Donald Trump in the last election. And is it the ability, aside from the signatures, is the money about getting the word out? Is it about TV commercials? Is it about all that stuff? I mean, is it just really driving home your candidate's view, your candidate's positions? Or is it more than that? Because, the ads I see they're very, very hateful. There's not a lot of, it's very negative. It's all negative these days. Whereas I think in the past it was a bit more balanced. But what do you need this money for in order to beat it? And why do we need so much of it?
Yeah. And I spent some time in England where they have sort of this limited, like the budget for your campaign comes from the government. You get X amount, everybody gets the same amount, how you spend it, whatever. There's so much money in US politics. So
it's like a salary cap in sports.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
And it keeps the system moving forward. So what do you need the money for? I would say if I were running an individual campaign, the vast majority of your money should be spent to get people to vote, get them to the polls, get them to, mail in their ballots, get them to do their absentees, because that's what matters at the end of the day. So whether it's through advertising, whether it's through digital campaigns, whether it's through any other kind of what we call GOTV, get out the vote efforts with volunteers, that's where you got to spend that money. Now, advertising helps, right? You could say, I'm going to do a national TV buy, or I'm going to do a digital buy in order to inspire people. But more importantly, to identify people, get them to take an action, get them to sign up, get their contact information, so that when it comes time to vote, you can turn them out to actually, check a box or mail in their ballot. So GoTV is the name of the game. Get out the vote, because nothing else matters if come election day, those people stay home, figuratively stay home, right? If they don't register, if they don't get that mail-in ballot, if they don't go to their local school or polling place, it's all wasted money. So that's where that money comes in the most valuable. And so with, on that note, right, the identifying these people takes a lot of money. Identifying through digital means, through email campaigns and websites and social media. So first you got to find out where they are, who they are. Then you want to know what motivates them. And, Cambridge Analytica, if you remember, got in trouble for some of this a while back, right? Really knowing people a little too well to inspire them. So identify them, what moves them, and then driving them to vote in that election. That's where a lot of the money goes. This takes staff, this takes infrastructure, this takes travel. There's all those things, but the bulk of the money should be for voter identification and voter turnout.
Okay.
And do you, and I know that, do you know, just off the top of your head, or like a ballpark, like, how many adults who are eligible to vote actually participate in national elections? Do you know that stat?
Oh, I should, and I'm
sorry. I'm not. It's not a get you moment. I'm just like, oh, I'm kind of curious. Like, right? Like, what?
The short answer is not enough,
right?
To be honest with you, right? And I think a lot of the reason they're not is because of those primaries, right? Like, they're not the people they want to vote for aren't the people who are on the ballot come November.
So they're very disenfranchised.
Yeah, they're disenfranchised. They don't represent them. They're not going to be proud to cast that ballot. So I think that actually drives down a lot of voter turnout. And nowadays, most of what the candidates and parties doing are trying to drive out vote by voting against somebody,
right?
Not inspiring them to come out and vote for me. President Obama, people came out to vote for him because he was inspiring, because he was exciting, he was different. He listened to people. He talked about policy. Mayor Mandami was inspiring. People turned out to vote for him, which is the way it should be. A lot of it is trying to get people to turn out to vote against something. And that's just not going to have the same motivating factor as inspiring someone to get out to vote for something. So I think that's 100%. Another reason for that low turnout. But I would embarrass myself if I threw out the number and I was way off. So
I'm not. I'm not.
I know you weren't trying to, but
I was just like, oh,
Google it, people. Google it.
Yeah.
So what's next, John? What is the what's the plan? What obviously midterms are coming up, and they'll be here before we know it. Like where are you guys putting your resources? What are you looking to accomplish?
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks for asking. So it's the midterms. It is, every member of the House is on the ballot. A third of the Senate's on the ballot, and number of gubernatorial elections, state legislative elections. So our year is sort of, a combination of recruiting candidates. And we've already got a ton of really great candidates across the country that we're really excited about. So recruiting candidates, so identifying them, motivating them to run, working towards ballot access in more states, building sort of that get out the vote infrastructure with volunteers and state parties so that when we do have these candidates, we have the ability to turn out the vote to support them, raising money to make all of this happen, and still continuing to work on election reform. But it's an election year. So let's recruit candidates. Let's recruit volunteers. We just recruited a huge new batch of volunteers that we're looking forward to bringing into the fold and helping to get, those get out the vote efforts, raising money to make it all happen. So it's a big year, but the election is our focus. We're going to start rolling out some more endorsements for some candidates in April, even though we're a ways off from November. But as these folks come in and they're identified, we start to endorse them and hope to raise their profile and build support behind them, get them the resources and the infrastructure they need to be successful. So building all of that while also sort of implementing towards a successful November election.
So I'm curious, John, like, do you see somebody who's running, right, who's starting a campaign, and you guys go out and be like, hey, we really like what you're doing, and you kind of recruit them? Or is it that people kind of know who you are and they come to you for the support, or is it kind of a mix?
It's absolutely a mix, right? Okay. So we'll see someone who, maybe they announce an independent campaign and we say, oh, you want to run as independent, come talk to us at the Forward Party. We have the infrastructure to help you run still as an independent, but with Forward Party resources and infrastructure. Sometimes we get people who say, I really want to run. I'm not a Republican or a Democrat anymore, or never was. Let me look at other ways to run. And they come across the Forward Party and start to work through us to become a candidate. Sometimes our folks are volunteers first and they decide, oh, I want to give it a try. And they are familiar with us already and decide to run. So they, we actively recruit them. Some come to us. It's a great mix and it works really well.
That's really cool. So if somebody wants to get involved, someone has questions, What's the best way for them to do that?
Yep. Don't knock on my door, because there's a pretty good chance I'm not going to answer it.
Right. Well, don't worry. We've posted your phone number. Yeah.
And your address.
Yeah. And your address.
That is all.
Yeah.
That is in
Perfect.
the show notes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect. No, forwardparty.com is the easiest way. Everything is there. There's lists of volunteer events. There's learn more about our values, sign up for our newsletter. Everything you need is on our website. Follow us on social media. We have, very active on Instagram, even LinkedIn, Facebook, Blue Sky, Threads, you name it. We are active. But the website really is the best place to get more information, learn more about what we're trying to do, find local chapters and local parties, in your state and where you live. And everything you need is there. And at the end of the day, reach out to us. We have a great team of folks who want to meet anyone who's willing to get involved as a volunteer, just a supporter, just wants to learn more. We're very reactive to these folks. And so forwardparty.com, find out more and reach out to us.
Actually, it's, I was, when I was on your website, I was looking through Colorado, and there's someone from the Colorado party in Boulder County here, Bridget Myers, is going to be coming on the show in a few weeks to kind of follow up. And I thought it might be fun to talk to you, who's looking at things at a national level, and then talk to someone who's looking at a really local level. So I'm excited to talk to her too, and find out what her role looks like on the ground.
That's great. Yeah, that'll be great perspective. The last thing I'll say, and I have to do it, I apologize. We also have a podcast, the Forward Party Podcast,
awesome.
On YouTube. On
this
Spotify.
Podcast is over.
So we feature a lot of our candidates, and we feature
That's awesome.
National celebrities. It's hosted by former New Jersey Governor Christy Todd Whitman, former Massachusetts Lieutenant Governor Kerry Healy, and Lindsey Drath, who is the CEO of the Forward Party. And we bring in a lot of guests. It's a lot of fun. It's like this. We talk about issues and whatnot. So
I watched a couple of them. It's really good. It's really good.
You.
They do a really good job of staying away from partisan, like any sort of partisan rhetoric, which makes sense, obviously, because you guys are a party that's kind of against that. But the conversations, no matter who they talk to, I thought were really, really good. So definitely recommend checking that out.
Thank you. Yeah. And I think a lot like your great podcast here, people are going to learn stuff, which is what I think podcasts should be about. And I hope people who are going to listen to this episode and continue to listen to your podcast continue to learn. So I appreciate what you guys are doing.
Well, thank you, John. We appreciate you.
Sure.
So real quick. So if Kevin wants to run, can he be on your platform? Because I think he wants to do a hockey as the national sport platform. Yes. Is that the?
Well, I'm all aboard. I'm a hockey player myself. So
awesome. Well, there you go. We're good. Yeah, cool. We're good then. We're all set. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm in. Vote Kevin.
I mean, we did just kind of have this clean sweep, right? I mean, we won men's, women's, Paralympians, maybe even the juniors. I 5 hockey contests. So it might just be our national sport now.
It might be the right time to really push this platform too.
We're having a lot of issues as a country, but hockey's not one of them. Hockey is where we're shining.
Hockey is where we're doing our best. Yeah.
That's right.
All right. Well, yes, make America skate again. All right. Just so everybody knows, John and I are going to be taking next week off. I'm going to be out of town, so we're just going to take a week off. We're going to be back on April 8th. Our guest is going to be a guy named Brendan Fraser. He is a political strategist. He's a young political strategist who is very disillusioned with the Democratic Party and wants to see some significant change. So I'm really excited to talk to him. That'll be in 2 weeks from tonight. John Banks, always great to see you, my friend. John Goodwin, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate your time.
Yeah. That's great. I look forward to listening to more of your podcasts. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thanks, John. And have a good night, everybody. Thanks for joining.
Cheers.